Welcome to Tuesday's edition of TimesCast. Marcus Mabry and Helene Cooper on President Obama's Iraq exit speech.
He's still going to be taking a little bit of a victory lap.
Predicting political outcomes.
We can be pretty scientific about it.
And Brian Stelter and David Carr on this year's winners.
Broadcast networks are starting to work into niches as opposed to mass.
Marcus Mabry and Helene Cooper on President Obama's Oval Office address on the end of the Iraq combat mission.
Helene, what will the president say tonight? This is far from a clear-cut exit. There are 50,000 American troops still in Iraq. Though it is a democracy, many would say it's not a functioning democracy.
I think the president is still, despite all of that you just said, which is very true, he's still going to be taking a little bit of a victory lap because he, in his eyes, he feels that he's keeping a campaign promise. The president in the past has had a very conflicted relationship with the military. It certainly had its ups and downs. And he also will talk about politics in Iraq. It certainly is, it's a functional democracy, but just barely. They haven't managed to get beyond the elections. They still have a political stalemate.
Are there also political minefields for the president? The Republicans have been reminding everyone that he actually, as a senator, opposed the surge, which was one of the strategies that helped lead to this day of withdrawal of American combat troops.
It's so ironic, and the Republicans really want to hammer that one home. I think President Obama, I was talking to some people at the White House yesterday, and I brought this up. And they said, yeah, he's going to mention that, but then he's going to move quickly and try to talk about the larger United States national security strategy.
Will this milestone matter in the midterm elections? Could it help the Democrats? Or in the end, will people only care about the weak economy?
That is a great question. And I really think the answer to that is, not so much. The economy is such a big deal right now. When you go out into the country, and I was with President Obama 2 weeks ago, right before his trip to Martha's Vineyard, when we went to all these we went to California, to Wisconsin, to Florida, to Ohio, to these different points as part of his fundraising campaign in the election. Nobody was bringing up Iraq. Iraq almost seems like it's last year or the year before's war. And right now, the big issue for the Democrats and for the president is the economy.
Jim Roberts and Nate Silver, the political blogger, discussed the numbers driving this year's upcoming elections.
Nate, last week we started publishing your blog 538 on nytimes.com. And in one of your early posts, you talked about your latest prediction about the Senate races, saying that you thought that the Democrats stood a chance of losing 6 to 7 seats in November. And I wanted to talk a little bit about just how you come to that calculation.
Well, we're looking at the polls in individual states as well as kind of how the big puzzle fits together between different states. But the basic idea is looking back at history and saying, when, for example, a candidate has a 5-point lead, about 60 days out from the election as we are now, how often do they win? That's the kind of basic premise.
You're looking at a compilation of polls, but you're looking at them through the prism of many years of electoral history.
We're kind of at the point now where really there's kind of robust polling at the state level for about the last 6 election cycles since 1998, right? And so now we start to have enough where we can be pretty scientific about it.
Why don't we take a look at Nevada, because I know it's a race a lot of people have paid attention to. Harry Reid is fighting for his seat there, and the polls are really tight.
Well, this is kind of an interesting race where, in some sense, both candidates are fighting uphill. For Harry Reid, he has an approval rating around 40%, and it's very unusual for a candidate to be reelected, especially in a bad cycle for his party, for the Democrats, with a number like that. Nevertheless, the polls basically show it tied, and the reason why is because a lot of Sharon Engel's voters are very reluctant to vote for her. She's not terribly experienced. She's said some things that some people find a little out there. So you have a state where voters don't like either candidate particularly, and Harry Reid's chances actually are improving a bit as doubts grow about Engel, whereas before it looked like he was maybe a 4-1 underdog, and now we have him a little behind, some people don't. But being down, with a 40% chance is a lot better than I would have thought, a lot of people would have thought 6 months ago, certainly.
Right. Finally, Brian Stelter and David Carr on the TV shows that won Emmys with daring content.
So, Brian, I'm enough of a nerd, so I actually watched the Emmys. All of them. It was actually a pretty good show. You went to them. A show that in its freshman season, pretty edgy portrait of American family, Modern Family, won. So another victory for dark cable programming, except
this time on a broadcast network. This was validating risk-taking by the broadcast networks. both with the Best Comedy win for Modern Family and for the early awards for Glee, the High School Musical on Fox. I think the Emmy voters were saying, we like the broadcast, is acting a little more like cable, taking risks, trying more complicated storytelling and more nuanced characters.
It seems a little bit of a move to the coast in terms of sensibility. You've got gay themes, you've got really edgy sort of programming. I think there's vast swaths of the American heartland that probably wouldn't enjoy Modern Family that much. Maybe broadcast networks are starting to work into niches as opposed to mass.
Yeah, I had executives even at the parties on Sunday night saying to me that Modern Family is a little too ironic for some viewers. It's a little too edgy for some viewers. But broadcast is making space for these more niche shows, in part just because all of television is fragmented.
Join us again tomorrow for another edition of TimesCast.